So just to let you know that the number of students with disabilities is increasing year on year, right? So you going to college looking for support is no big deal because it's a well-trodden path, right? You're definitely not the only person who's gone in there with a medical condition and that you need support, right? So we know that the number of students every year goes up, right? And it goes up about 15% every year, right? And as I say, it's a well-trodden path. So there's definitely other people in the class. You're definitely not the only one. And of course, most disabilities like your own is non-visible, right? So just because you don't see someone's disability, as you know, doesn't mean to say that it doesn't exist. I don't have a huge amount of slides because we don't necessarily need a huge amount of slides, but we'll have chats around things, and do feel free to interrupt me and ask me for clarification. So just in terms of the post-leaving cert options, I'm not sure where people are at, but in terms of the leaving cert, right? If you want to, there's a scheme called DARE, right? Which is an application entry scheme, which is an admission scheme for people with disabilities applying to go to third level education. So not further education, higher education, operates what's called the DARE scheme. And the DARE scheme means that you apply through the CAO, and if you're eligible and are offered a place, you may get a place at reduced points, right? So it recognises the fact that as a person with a disability or a long-term health condition, that you may have been disadvantaged by this in school, right? And therefore that would have affected your attendance at school, and that you can apply for it, right? So, and that now is applied for through the CAO, and it's the same deadline, right, in terms of the 1st of February, right? And that is very important, that you apply for the CAO on the 1st of February. There's a timeline to do with DARE, right? And you will get that information from accesscollege.ie. In fact, I'll send you on that link, right, about how to actually fill out the application form. And it gives you quite detailed information, but you must adhere to the timeline because they don't take late applications for the DARE scheme. And it's very important to say that, because I get asked this question all the time. Or if you have an incomplete application, your application won't be processed. So if you are applying for the DARE scheme, it's very important that you follow the guidelines that are available on the accesscollege.ie website. And again, you must apply for it through the CAO, right? Then, of course, you've got further education courses. These could be in your local FET college where you live. And there are hundreds of courses out there, right? And if you have a disability and you need support, there is a special fund called the Fund for Students with Disabilities, right? Now, this isn't a grant, right? This is money that is made available to students with disabilities who are going to college, higher education and further education, right? And it's applied for through the disability office in the college, right? So there is funding available. This fund was all administered through the Higher Education Authority, but if you want to go to FE, the further education sector, it's now being administered by SOLAS, right? But that doesn't really matter in the sense that once you're in the college and you're registered as a student with the disability service, they can apply for funding on your behalf, right? If you decide to go to an adult education centre, you will get support as well, but they cannot access, or they used to be able to access, the fund for students with disabilities, right? Now, with SOLAS taking over, that may have changed, but it's just something to bear in mind if you are going to an adult education centre, or if you're thinking about it and you need support that's going to cost money, that you should double check with them, can they fund it, right? before you sign on the dotted line. Just make sure that it's funded. And of course, if you're a student who is a mature student, you can, of course, go back to education, either further or higher education. You can go by direct entry. That means you apply directly to the college. There's also a thing called the link scheme, right? And this is for people who achieve a full FETAC award. So usually this is either a level 5 or a special award level 6, right? In order to get into higher education from further education, you really need a full FETAC award. And you need to complete it in one sitting. And what I mean by one sitting is within 1 year, because you can actually do a FETAC course by module, right? So you could decide to do a couple of modules 1 year, a couple of modules the next year, and that's fine. And you'll eventually get your award. But if you want to go to higher education through the link scheme, you must get it in 1 year, right? And then, of course, you can go to an access course. And what is an access course? An access course is usually run by a third level institution. So, for example, they run them in Maynooth, they run them in DCU, I think they have one in UCD. So I think all the universities have an access course, right? You apply to the access course and you do like different assignments, you do different, lots of stuff on the course. And if you're successful on the course, that is another way to get into college. In fact, my own sister did the access course in Maynooth and went back as a mature student. So there are lots of ways into and around education, right? So you might have left school early, or you might have left school and just went straight to work. And now you've decided, actually, I want to change my career. I want to go to college. So there are other ways to get to college. And of course, not to forget as well, the apprenticeship schemes, right? They are really good, right? Because you get to work a couple of days a week and you get to study a couple of days a week. So you're getting paid, right, while you're studying. So don't forget about apprenticeships, right? And you can also do an apprenticeship in ICT, so computers and communication, through what's called FIT, F-I-T, right? And that information is available on the apprenticeships website, right? So there are plenty of options out there. And of course, if you want to retrain in something, right? So say you started out life, like myself, I started out life as a draftsman, a draft person, imagine, right? And if I wanted to retrain in computers, I could go and do a springboard course. And all the links are available in this presentation, and I'm going to give this to Deirdre later. So she's going to share it with all of you, and you can go and test out the links yourself, right? So that's just to go through and to say there are actually plenty of options out there for you, right? And actually a few tips on choosing a college course. And I mean, we've all done this. I studied, as we were talking about this before we started, I studied fine art printmaking. I've ended up in a totally different career. I started out life as a draftsman. I have had loads of different careers in my life, right? So, you might decide to do one thing at the beginning and then go, oh, this wasn't really for me, or, there's always ways of changing your career. But just in terms of actually making applications to college, right? Because I'm the one who gets all these phone calls, is that if you do have a degree, right? Say you've gone off to college and you got your degree, and you have a degree in, I don't know, filmmaking, right? And then you come away and you say, oh, gee, Peters, I can't, it was the wrong career move for me. I need to do something different. And you have to be progressing on the framework in order to get the grant, right? So you can't do 2 degrees. Well, you can do 2 degrees, right? So if you're eligible for the free fee scheme, as many people are, right, as an undergrad or first-time undergrad, like lots of people who do the Leaving Cert apply for the free fee scheme and they don't pay for their degree, right? if you have a degree, and regardless of whether you got free fee scheme or not, right? If you go and want to do another degree from scratch, you have to pay for it, right? So you've got to be progressing on the framework, which is why Springboard is good, because you could do a course as a postgrad in a new career area. So it's just something to bear in mind in terms of your, career choices, or, moving forward, So, I'd always say find out as much information as possible about the courses that you're applying for. And on your CAO, please don't apply for only one, right? You would not believe the phone calls I have had over the years from people who told me they were told they would apply for X course in, I don't know, Tralee, and they were guaranteed they were going to get it. There is no guarantee that you're going to get your course choice, right? More is better than less, right? More is better than less. So choose wisely, but don't just choose one, right? Attend as many open days, online events as you can, right? If you can talk to, and sometimes when you go to these open days, you get to meet staff who are working in certain areas to try and find out as much as you can about a course. So for example, you were interested in doing psychology, right? Did you know that if you want to do psychology, there's loads of maths involved? And you may not know that until you start the course and go, jeepers, I didn't know. So you don't necessarily get, you have to do a bit of research and do a bit of delving around what is actually involved in the course itself, right? And asking, like, what will I be doing all day? Asking loads of questions. How many hours of class? And this might affect you in terms of if you're having a bad time with your condition. Do I have to be in class all the time, or can I study from home, right? And the one upside of COVID is the fact that we have now moved into a blended learning arena, right? Which, if you do suffer, at times, that you could be studying elsewhere rather than having to be on site, right? And of course, visiting the campus, difficult maybe at the moment, although we are starting to open up again. So hopefully moving forward, that is something that you could do, is go and get a feel for the campus, like how far away from home is it? Are you going to be living away from home? Your support network, they're all important things, regardless of whether you have a disability or not, really. And then of course, choosing something that you're interested in, and because if you just choose something around, oh, isn't computers all the in thing? I think I'll do computers, but maybe you don't really want to work with computers, apart from the basics of knowing how to turn it on and get around your emails, So, I mean, say for example, myself, hopefully nobody I know is watching this. I would have never chosen a career in accounts because I can't stand figures, but I was a draftsman. But the thing about being a draftsman was the figures were to do with drawing. It was a totally different idea of figures, because it was to do with measurement, looking, drawing, as opposed to doing accounts, So and the thing about careers is careers are a changeable, movable thing. And when you go to college or study, you do get a set of generic skills that are transferable, So don't be panicking about changing your career. Take me as an example. 1 minute I was in a studio and now I'm here. I mentioned earlier, there's a fund for students with disabilities, and that pays for the disability related support. And as I said, right, it's not a grant, it won't go to you. That is actually administered only by disability service or the designated disability person, right? So once you are going to college, it can be applied for, for you. But, you can be looking at colleges, but they won't apply for any funding or any supports until you're actually officially in the college, So that's why it's good to do your research and find out what is available. right? There are, of course, college scholarships. You've got the 1916 bursary, which is actually out at the moment. There is, of course, the student grant, which you apply for and your college fees are paid, and then some people get a maintenance grant. Now you can get that as a postgrad as well, but the maintenance part might be missing. So it depends on what level of education you're going into. There is, of course, as well, the back to education allowance, right? And with the back to education allowance, it's one or the other. So you're either getting the grant or you're getting the back to education allowance. Years ago, if I don't remember when this was, you could get both, but now you can get one or the other, right? And remember as well, if you are going to college, right, and you're on an unemployment payment, you have to change it because you're going to run out of stamps, right? So you need to inform the Department of Social Protection that you're going to college, right? This is just a formality, and it's to make sure that you're on the right payments, right? Because you can't be going to college if you're actually supposed to be actively looking for work. And as I said, you will run out of your stamps. And then you've got the Student Assistance Fund, and this is a fund that is available in higher education. There may be some smaller funds available in the FET sector, and it's basically, you know, a kind of a Saturday fund. You know, you're running out of money or whatever, but it's kind of like not complicated to apply for. But there is an application process, and it's means tested, right? So like the grant, all of these, the student grant is also means tested. So the student grant will go on last year's, you know, household income, and the student assistance fund is something similar that go on your incoming, you know, funds in and out. They'll, you know, go into great detail, and then of course, depending on that, money goes very quickly. So everybody applies for it at the start of the year. People who want it. So just to be mindful of the fact that if you want to apply for the assistance fund, you need to be doing it early in the year, and the amounts that you get will of course vary, right? You can of course get more information about funding at third level if you check out the studentfinance.ie website, which is hosted by the Higher Education Authority. So you'll get all that information there. Disclosure, right? Telling somebody about your disability, actually having the conversation, or ticking it on a form, right? I would advise you to do this at the beginning of term if you haven't already done it on your CAO, right? It's very important. And if you want to apply for the DARE scheme, it's very important that you disclose your disability on the CAO form, because once you apply on the CAO, you get directed to the SIF form, which is part of the DARE form, the supplementary information form, which you fill out, right? That information goes to the colleges, and it gives them advance notice of students with disabilities coming in as well, right? That means that they'll be able to contact you when you are registered, but they're always busy, the disability service, right? So don't be depending on them to contact you. You have to be proactive and contact them, and do it at the start of the year, right? Because you'll get other supports as well in college. There's things like they will tell you about the counselling services and other services. And if you need, they like the disability service, they are brilliant. They're so helpful, and they really are there for you, the student. That's what they're there for. So it's really important to let them know. Because remember, you need to have a conversation with them around how your condition affects you, right? Is it now and again? Or do you get migraine once a week? What does that mean for you in terms of accessing your education, right? Are you going to need access to notes after the lectures because you've missed them, right? How are you going to link in with your lectures? Can you get information, learning information, presentations, you know, assignment information from the learning management system in the college? All of those things are really important. And if you're unwell or need to take time out, people need to know, right? You can't just go missing, because in higher education and further education, it's not like in school where you've gone missing in school and your mother or father gets a phone call, where's Johnny? Oh, he was sick today. If you don't turn up in college, nobody is going to go looking for you. So it's really important that you be, you know, because you're 18 or you're 19, you are considered to be an adult, right? So if you're having problems in college and mommy or daddy decide to ring up, the college don't really want to deal with mommy or daddy. They'll be dealing with you, the student. So it's kind of like getting used to managing that side of yourself. So the Disability Support Office, right? It might also be called the Access Office, or in some colleges, they just have a designated person who is the disability officer in some of the further education colleges, right? So they'll do what's called a needs assessment, where they will sit down and they will look at what your support needs are in relation to your condition. If you needed assistive technology or learning support services because you've missed some time in college. Lots of colleges now have mainstream learning support services. So that's about finding out where can you actually access the services. And then lots of students with disabilities can avail of support in the exam situation. So if you're unwell and you needed a room on your own, or if you needed some other type of support to do with exams, or you needed extra time to complete the exam, this would all be sorted out through the exams office. So the disability service liaise with them, right? So you'll find out at the start of the year, your needs assessment's carried out, and you will find out what supports you're going to get at the start of the year, right? If you leave it too long in the year, you may not be able to get support that you could have got, right? Which may have really helped you on your course. So that's why I'm saying it's really, really important to actually register with the disability service. You do have an ongoing condition that's recognised under legislation, well, right? So what do you do when you get to college? As I said, register with the Disability Support Service. As I said, also known as the Access Service. Get yourself orientated. Find out where all the places are in the college. Where's the canteen? Where do people hang out? Where are my lecture halls? Where do I need to go? You know, finding out about clubs and societies, right? Particularly in higher education, they have lots of clubs and societies, because remember, if you're in further education, you're on a course for a year, maybe 2 years, whereas if you're in higher education, you could be on a 4-year course. So you're with the same people possibly for 4 years. So it's not only about accessing your learning and accessing your course, it's also about enjoying your time in college, getting to make new friends, and you know, expanding out your support network, and do get involved in societies. Actually, and I have a note here as well, or set up your own. So you may have something that you're really, really interested in, and you can set up your own, you know, and they're great fun, you know, and it is a great way to meet new people as well. So just to say a little bit about the legal bit, right? There are several different acts out there that, you know, around, you know, getting support, right? The one that was particularly, I suppose, pertinent to anyone in this particular, you know, talk is the Equal Status Act, and that's around getting support in college, right? Because under goods and services, we're actually accessing a service. College is a service provider, in a sense, and that you are entitled to reasonable accommodation if that's deemed necessary as part of the needs assessment. But remember now as well, here's a little tip for you now, right? Although you are, you know, you can get support, it isn't about you going in saying, oh, I have migraines and I need this and I need that and I need the other, right? It's about you sitting down with the disability officer or the disability staff and agreeing between you what support you can get, right? Because while they do offer a range of supports, and it will depend on what your specific need is. You know, it has to be a reasonable accommodation, you know. So, and you know, the college services are well and truly embedded at this stage of the game, you know, so they're well and truly used to students coming in. But it's just about setting your expectations of what can I get, what am I actually entitled to, you know, and you are entitled to support if it's deemed necessary through the disability service, right? But it's not about you going in saying, oh, I had this in school and I want it now. It is about, you know, having a conversation with them and agreeing with them what they're actually going to be able to put in place, right? And as I said earlier, any parents on this call, you know, colleges won't liaise with parents unless it comes under mental health, right? So where somebody is really, really unwell with mental health, where, you know, there's a significant health danger, they will contact you or will liaise with the parent. But within the general scheme of things, no, right? Once a student's registered, they are deemed to be responsible, they're adults, and the students have to get used to that as well. And it's difficult, you know, because, you know, you're used to fighting for your parents or fighting for your child's support. And it's a difficult one to kind of let go and say, oh, Mary's an adult now, I can't contact the college, you know, so just get used to that. But some colleges do offer information sessions for parents. So I know they definitely do that in Trinity, for example, you know, just so the parents know how the system works, particularly in higher education. So that's kind of it really in a nutshell. And I know there's a lot of information in it, but it is being recorded. So you can all have another look later if you wish. But you can, as you can see, my details are there and you can contact me directly.